Hey, thanks, Jesse, and good morning, everyone. We appreciate your time and giving us a little bit of your morning so we can share our story about AgileField. So, as Jesse mentioned, my name's Jeff Gregrick. I'm a senior leader here at AgileField. We're excited to present to you and equally excited to be partnering with Fay Business Systems. I've got about a 15-year relationship with them and always enjoyed it, and it's equally exciting here at AgileField. More importantly, we call her the Office Oracle. We have Jen Tronson on the phone. Jen is our senior member of our organization and probably the most knowledgeable person, not just of our platform, but of probably everything that goes on here at AgileField. So for any of you that get the opportunity to interact with Jen, you'll certainly enjoy it. Today's call will last roughly 25 to 35 minutes, depending upon the interaction. We'll cover our company slightly and our platform a little bit in presentation mode, but I think the part you'll find most interesting is the actual demonstration of our platform. And we'll touch briefly on the integrations between AgileField and Sage 100. I was a senior leader at Sage myself for about 6 years, so I have a great deal of familiarity and intimacy with Sage 100, near and dear to my heart, and those folks that leverage and use the platform. As Jesse mentioned, please feel free to interact with us and engage through the chat feature, and we encourage questions and certainly would encourage communication following the call if something bubbles up, just by directing it through the Fay Business Systems team. So without further ado, Jen Tronson, I think all of you will enjoy listening to her presentation and be glad when I stop talking. So Jen, you have the controls and I'll let you work your magic.
Sure. Alrighty, I'm going to start here by just going over the product from a high level, and then we'll dive deeper into this. So we're going to go through a couple quick slides here, and then we're going to jump over to the actual platform. Again, as Jesse and Jeff have said, if you guys have questions, feel free to chat in. We're happy to answer them, depending on what they are, maybe in real time, potentially just at the end when we go over all questions. So without further ado, product overview. Here's just kind of the main features and functionality of the system. We do have scheduling and dispatch capabilities within here. So there's a number of different ways that we can do that we'll certainly look over. We have a simple and easy to use field mobile application. So that's going to be mainly the most important piece of this, the people out in the field actually doing work, whether that's on a tablet or a smartphone of sorts. Work order management, so whether that's one-time break-fix type jobs, recurring work, preventative work, or any like longer-term multi-day projects. In terms of customer engagement, we do have a few tools for that, including a customer portal and actual customer mobile application as well, and then automatic notifications that we'll take a little bit of a deeper look at. Inventory and asset management, so that would include any parts and material inventory, any equipment or any vehicles, whether they're owned by your own company or your customer. Integration, so to other CRM, ERP, and accounting systems. I'll kind of leave that to Jeff and Jesse to talk to in a few minutes here. And then analytics, so to evaluate any performance and make sure that you guys are making the best business decisions possible, making sure that we're harnessing that data that we're able to get out of the system now. Just a few of the basics here. So we are a cloud-based system, also available in disconnected offline mode. So we do have quite a few customers that work in poor cell areas, even something like mining. So the mobile application will work in a disconnected offline mode. It'll just download to the phone. They can work as normal, and then all of that information will upload back in real time when they get back to connectivity. Can manage user permissions within the system. We also play really nicely with any tablets, laptops, or smartphones, so it doesn't matter if it's an Android, a Windows, or an iOS device. In terms of customer engagement, we do have a customer web portal and then also a branded mobile application. They can go on, view any equipment or vehicles that they might have or that you're going to be out servicing. They can view any job history and then real-time progress as things are happening in the field, whether that's in a map view or a list view. There's a number of different ways to consume that information. And most importantly, easily request new work. So if you think about it, maybe you're trading back a bunch of emails and phone calls. In the current state, this is going to enable somebody to go on their phone, their computer, their laptop, their tablet, hit a new job button, make that request automatically. In terms of communicating some of that stuff, we do have automatic text and email notifications. So those can be in the form of like an in-transit or an on-site alert. Maybe it's a custom template, so like for a work order or an invoice. We've even seen it used for completion surveys. So a little bit about the way that that works is we'll see some different job statuses here. So this is a screenshot of the mobile application. So while people are out in the field changing the different job statuses to in transit, to on site, to complete, this can drive any communication here. That's completely configurable by you, and the templates and the messages are configurable by you as well. Example of that might be, if your people hit on site, you want to send over a text message that says, hello Bob, your technician Jen has arrived on site. And then maybe when we complete a job, we want to send a copy of the work order, with basic information here, maybe an invoice date, a job number, all of the type of work that was completed. So again, all of that can happen automatically or manually, just depending on the configurations that makes most sense for your business. In terms of schedule and dispatch, we do have a number of different ways that we can do that within the system. The first and most commonly used way is just to do a simple drag and drop. So if we look at this screenshot here, we've got a number of different jobs up here waiting to be scheduled. We have our different people that we can schedule jobs to down below, and then we can simply grab this job and drag it down. We'll see that we have a number of different employees in different groupings along the left side over here. We've got these different pink bars, which are going to help indicate the shifts of each person. So the white space is when they're available to be scheduled. The pink bars are going to indicate when they're off. And then these different colors here are going to indicate the job statuses. So this is going to give you a really quick kind of one-time glimpse of what's going on in the field in real time. These will start to change as the people in the field hit the different job statuses to see these different colors here. The next way that we can do scheduling is to utilize a map view. So we'll see this screenshot here. The way that this works is it's actually a button that will pop out onto a separate screen. So this is typically used by dispatchers that have a dual screen scenario because these two do interact with each other. So this table view will interact with the map and vice versa. Example of that might be if I click on this job here, it'll highlight it up here in the list. And then if I were to click on a specific user, it will highlight that here. So that works both ways, and it just makes it a lot easier to schedule according to proximity by simply ruling out the different people and then doing a drag and drop here. The third way to schedule with AgileField is our auto scheduling feature. So that is an algorithm that's built to maximize customer satisfaction. For that reason, it's going to take into consideration any division restrictions, and divisions are typically a geographic location. So if there's multiple different offices or different geographic areas that people cover, we want to split them out that way so that the correct people are getting the correct work. The job skill that's required to do the type of work, what users are available and have enough time to actually complete the job, and then based on proximity, of course, from the last known location of the user at that time. So an example of that is if there's a job that comes in for 3 p.m., it's going to schedule that job to the user that meets all of that criteria and is closest to that job at 3 p.m. We'll look a little bit deeper at this once we get into the actual product, but that is the main 3 ways that we can do the scheduling. Of course, we'll go over that, and all of these groupings, of course, are going to be customer defined as well. So the divisions and any of these skills or certifications are going to be defined by you for what makes the most sense in terms of the scheduling feature here. From a high level, here's our mobile application. I'm going to just go over some of the main features, and then we will look at all of this once we get out to the actual product. Time card capture. So there are a number of different ways that we can capture time within the system, whether that's the time that you're going to bill to your customer, the time that you're going to track for performance on how long it's taken you to complete jobs, or payroll time. So we'll look at all of those different options when we get out to the mobile. Something to keep in mind is as we look through the product, just keep in mind that there are a lot of things that are turn on, turn off. An example of that is this create new jobs button. So you'll see this button up here, it says create new job. This is something that you can choose to enable your people in the field to do, or we can simply turn it off if you don't want them to have that capability. But what it'll allow them to do is create a new job. So if you think about that, maybe you have a customer that calls the text directly and you want them to be able to schedule their own work. They can utilize this here on the mobile. Or maybe they're out doing one job for somebody and a neighbor walks over and says, hey, can you do this for me too? They can simply click right there and create a new job themselves. So it eliminates that need to have back and forth with the back office just to schedule work that they're about to do. Automatic notifications and alerts. So this is not only for customer communication, but for the technicians as well. So they will be alerted when they have new jobs, when there's changes in the times and things like that. It can also be used for like gate codes or warnings about a dog in the backyard and things like that. They can manage material inventory straight from the mobile device and then view and manage any equipment as well. So we'll look at what that looks like, but they're able to see warehouse stock, vehicle stock, and things like that depending on permissions. Another feature that makes that really simple is the barcode scanning. So that will just utilize the phone's camera. It'll pull up a scanner and allow them to scan in any serialized equipment or materials. So there's no searching necessary or typing in a bunch of long numbers. It'll simply pull up that record automatically or scan it right onto a job or a vehicle automatically through that scan. Same thing with that using the phone's camera, photo or document attachments. So those can work both ways within the back office and the mobile device. If there's a document, for example, maybe a training manual or something like that that we would need to attach to the job, we can attach that in the back office. It's going to be viewable on the phone in real time. And then any photos that might be taken on the job are going to be stored with that job and automatically viewed in the back office as well. We are integrated with Google Maps, so that will provide us with GPS locations and then also driving directions. The way that kind of works is when we change these different job statuses, it's going to not only drop a GPS pin, but it's going to date and timestamp that as well. So that will always be there, and then we can also tap into it for any driving directions to specific jobs or job locations. Inspection forms are going to be completely custom to each person's business. And basically what we do there is we take anything that you're filling out in the field right now, maybe it's 3 questions, maybe it's 4 pages, and we make a digital version of that that's viewable on the tablet or phone. The main thing there is to really just cut down any mistakes so you can require questions and things like that. We can also make sure that they're typing in all that information, and that's obviously going to go to the back office in real time. So there's no more need for double entry. It's going to really just streamline things and make sure that it's more efficient. And then lastly, customer and technician signatures. So we can turn on or off either of those and then require either of them as well. Anything that we talked about here that's collected on the mobile application is available via an integration and also viewable in terms of any templates that we might utilize. So if you want to send over a copy of a completed work order and you want to embed signatures and the different questions that we collected on the forms, all of that is certainly doable. And from a reporting standpoint, those are all viewable as well there.
Can you accept credit card payments with the app?
We don't today.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep. In terms of inventory management, we can track any of the inventory within our own system. Typically, if there's a system in place like Sage, it's going to be more or less us making sure that we're tracking the movement of that between warehouses and vehicles and then onto jobs ultimately, and then passing that information back over to Sage. So typically how that works is Sage is going to be the source of truth and always going to be managing like the purchasing, the new items that are going to come in, and then via integration, we're going to update AgileField. But within our system, we can accommodate the different serialized and non-serialized materials and pieces of equipment that you might have, so we can monitor and track the different movements there, and then make sure that all the quantities are updated in both systems in real time. From a reporting perspective, we do have a number of preloaded core business reports. It's anything that you'd expect to see from like a management or operations standpoint. We can also create custom reports and dashboards here, and then automate the scheduling of those as well. A good example of that might be if there's executives at the company that don't necessarily need to have access to the system all the time and learn how to navigate all of it. They just want to see the list of completed jobs for that day. We can send that to automatically send at 5 p.m. every day. They don't need to worry about going into AgileField and knowing how to navigate the system. It'll just arrive in their inbox automatically. Technically speaking, we do have a virtual private data warehouse, so it's going to have no impact on performance in the field. All that really means is if there's some giant crazy report that you're trying to run, it's not going to affect Fred who's out working on a job. That also gives us the ability to utilize any existing analytics system. So if there's something in place like Domo or Tableau or Power BI or something like that, we can actually point that at our data warehouse, and then you can continue to consume the information in the manner that you're used to. For integrations, I'll pass this back over to you, Jeff, and then from there we can actually jump into the platform.
Thanks, Jen. Great job so far. We touched on this briefly at the start of the call. So we have a feature within AgileField that we call the Integration Hub, and essentially what that means is it's an easier mechanism to dynamically sync between most common ERP and CRM platforms. But I would say it has some limitations to it, and that's part of the reason why we've partnered with companies like Fay Business Systems to leverage their 30+ years of expertise with products like Sage. So if AgileField has an appeal and there's an element to it that you feel as though is worth pursuing further, I would encourage you to reach out to the Fay Business Systems folks and leverage their experience with Sage 100 and how that would best integrate to our platform. So I'll probably leave it at that, Jen, and let you continue on.
Sure. So I'm just going to jump out to the product here. What we're going to do is we're going to just go through some of the basics. So we're going to schedule a new job, take a look at the customer record so everyone has a good idea of what kind of information that we can store and how that might work with the system like Sage in place. And then we'll jump out to the mobile application with that, the emphasis being there. It's the most important and most commonly used piece of the system. So I'll get out here. Okay, so this is going to be the screen when I first log in here. All of these dashboards and graphs are configurable depending on who's logging in, so I just have a couple quick examples up here, but we can fill this entire space and make sure that these are going to be the KPIs and important reports for whoever's logging in here. To create a new job, I just simply hit this new job button here. If we have a customer that's calling in for the first time, we can hit this button here, enter the customer information, and then just continue on scheduling that job. For the sake of time, and also with a system like Sage in place, typically this is information that we'll already have coming over from Sage. So I'll click on this existing customer here. What we're looking at here is going to be our customer record. So I'm going to take you kind of quickly through each of the different fields and all the information we can store here, and then we'll continue on with scheduling the job. Something else to keep in mind is throughout the system, we're going to see a lot of different fields. So if you're seeing things up here that you're like, we don't really use that, or that's not important to us, we do have the ability, and you do as well, to remove or hide any of these fields. So something like fax maybe isn't important, we can hide that field so you're only seeing the information that's pertinent. We're going to see basic information up here: company name, account number, first names, last names, basic contact information, email address. Something important to note is that we do have a parent-child hierarchy. It's going to go n levels deep, so we can accommodate that structure that you probably already have built out in your current system. Customer type is going to be user-defined. Example, that might be like commercial or residential. So it's really just a grouping mechanism to classify the different customers. Same to that kind of tune is division over here. So again, this is typically a geographic location. But we can utilize this for something like different arms of a business. So maybe if they do pools and landscapes or things like that, we could utilize it that way. This is really just going to restrict the view and make sure that specific people are getting assigned a specific work. So we'll take a look at what that looks like on the scheduler view, but these are going to be user-defined here. Down below, we're going to have some more basic information and then some things we'll look at. So address info here, we have a basic or the job site address that will default here. We always have a billing address, so if that's different, we can accommodate for that here. Flex fields is something else that you'll see throughout the entire system on every major business object. So if we think about customers, users, materials, vehicles, equipment, things like that, Flex fields is really just our custom fields. So if you're looking up here and over in Sage you have 5 or 6 different custom fields that you've built out, we can accommodate those here. Anything that's under Flex fields is still going to be available from a reporting standpoint, from an integration standpoint, and for any of the templates as well. Notes we'll have here, so we can log any notes just as you would in any type of CRM or any system here. We can log standard notes. We can also designate some as alerts. So as an example of that, I've got gate code is #4040. We can put in that alert note here, so when people open up a job on the mobile device for AgileField, this gate code will pop up. So that's commonly used for things like a gate code, or maybe a warning, or saying, hey, Susie likes to get a call while you're on the way. Things like that, we can make sure that it's going to easily be communicated to the people that are out in the field. Any job notes, so it's going to store any past job notes here. We'll get a glimpse at job history. can click in to drill down further on any of these jobs. Again, this is just a glimpse here on the customer record. There's also further search capabilities as well. We'll have equipment here, so it'll show any equipment that's on site at this customer's location, and then same thing with any serialized pieces of material. We can accommodate multiple contacts here. So just like you'd have over in Sage, maybe Scott is the main point of contact, but we also have Jen and Brian here, and we can designate one of them at job setup to get that customer communication. We can track purchase orders within the system. So if you want to start attributing certain jobs to a PO, we can make sure that we're burning down against that PO within the system and connecting it appropriately to pass over to Sage. And then any tasks, if you want to utilize this within the system, is here as well. It's commonly used for tasking people with calls or internal tasks like following up on a job, resending an invoice. You can assign it to different users and track completion on those tasks. I'm going to go ahead and hit next to continue scheduling our job here. And here's where I can put in some additional information about this specific job. So I can put in a longer description. So if a customer calls and they're kind of giving us a diagnosis of what's going on, we might want to type that in here. I can put in a reference number on it. I can add a customer PO if that's relevant. Additional notes, so this is actually about 10,000 characters, so we can add quite a bit of notes for information to go out to the field. Request a date and time here. We can attach things like equipment to the job, any contracts if that's relevant. And then here's where I can designate a different contact. If I hit quick job here, I'm just going to select a maintenance job as an example. So all of these are going to be user defined, and it's going to depend on the type of work that you do. We'll think about these as kind of job templates. So if I click maintenance here, it might indicate a certain type of notifications that are going to go out. It might require a certain skill set. It might have a specific form or specific document that is going to be viewable on the mobile. And most importantly, it might have a set of different billable items that are going to go along with that job. So that really helps us out from a planning perspective, and then also makes it a lot easier for a dispatcher to make sure they're assigning the correct type of work to the correct people. So we'll get out here to the scheduler view, and this is going to show us the job that I just scheduled or that I just created here. Along the side here, we're going to see our different employees. You'll see that they're grouped here. I have field technician, electrical, customer service as a couple examples. These again are user defined, so we can change these to whatever makes sense for your company. We'll see the pink bars here again are going to indicate the shifts. We will see a PTO, so we definitely aren't an HR system, but if you have somebody that's out on vacation, you're going to want to input that into our system so that we know, Jeff's on vacation, make sure we don't schedule any jobs to him. We will see these different colors here to indicate the different job statuses. So red is going to be completed jobs. This yellowish color will be in transit, green is going to be on site, and this blue will be off site. So really quickly, the people that interact with the screen on a regular basis are going to be able to glimpse at this really quickly and get a really good understanding of what's going on in the field. Easiest way to schedule a job is to simply take this, drag and drop it down to an available user, and I can always move these around as well. So I can switch these jobs around, I can always make them longer, I can make them shorter, so these are going to indicate time. You'll see when I took that job and scheduled it down here, it defaulted to a specific amount of time. That's going to, again, be driven on the type of work that's being done. So if you know that a maintenance job typically takes an hour, we're going to set that in an hour so it automatically generates for an hour, versus if it's maybe like a new install, maybe that takes 2 or 3 hours. So those would default to 2 or 3 hours. But again, we can always make them longer or shorter depending on the needs for that job. If we go over here, go over here to these filters. We're going to see a couple different things that we can narrow the view down by. Project, for example, so if we have a specific job or project that we're rolling jobs up to, we can filter the scheduler view down by that as well. A specific customer, so I can view any jobs here and then down below for a specific customer. Most commonly used here is going to be the divisions feature. So if I click on Chandler, it will show me jobs for Chandler and employees in Chandler. And then you'll see this start to change as I select the different divisions. Something to note with that is I am logged in as a super user, so I'm able to see all the different divisions. If I was an employee of Chandler, we can restrict it so when they log in, they only see Chandler jobs and Chandler employees. So again, that's typically a geographic location, but we can use it for any type of grouping that might be necessary. Down here, we're gonna have a status legend. It'll show these different colors, but again, people usually become very familiar with this in a matter of hours. So it'll give us a really quick view of what's going on. So these filters are always there if we need them. We do have a week and a month view if that, if people work with multi-day jobs, it's a lot easier to view on that week view. What we're looking at here is some quicker jobs, so I've got it on just the day view here, and then we can always click on the calendar to see past days as well. From here, I'm going to jump out to the mobile application. Just going to refresh really quickly. And something to take a note of here is this is a mobile emulator, so it's not going to actually pull up my camera to do any barcode scanning or take any pictures, but for all intents and purposes, it's going to look exactly the same as if I were to log in on a tablet or a smartphone. Something to note is if I am working in disconnected offline mode, I will get a little red bar across the bottom here. It'll say disconnected offline mode. So I'm aware that I'm working in that offline mode and that it's not going to update the back office in real time. However, everything else is going to work as normal with a few tiny exceptions. But all of these same buttons will be available in the functionality that we're going to look at. Sync data here is really just a hard refresh. So if I get back from an offline mode and things aren't really seeming right, I can always hit sync data to hard refresh the app. I'm just going to go bottom to top here through all of the different options. So timesheet here, this is a really basic way to just track time. So if we'll go over the different options here for tracking the time. This here is just going to be for a specific employee. So for me that's logged in right now, I can simply punch in and punch out. So companies will commonly use this for payroll time. So maybe they clock in at 9 a.m. every day and then they clock out at 5. You can use these different punches. It'll store the date and the start and end times here. So you can utilize this for payroll. If we hit the search button, we can search through the system for things like equipment, vehicles, customers, materials, employees. This comes in really handy because we just try to give the people in the field the same search capability that they would get in the back office without having to learn a completely new system to them. So they always work on the mobile device. They're very used to how this works. Instead of having to learn how to log in back here and give them permissions you might not want them to have, they can do this search really quickly from the mobile. An example of that might be the employees here. So maybe I'm working a job. I see that Ben worked at last and I need to have his phone number. I can click in here, click to email, click to call. So it'll just give me a lot of search functionality there. Warehouses is something that we commonly see turned off depending on permissions, but this will show me the warehouse that I have access to. It'll allow me to click in here. It'll give me some basic information, and then I can always scroll through here to see all of the different items that I've got in stock in this warehouse. I can always filter search, so it's going to be a free text search field there. Most commonly used is going to be the scan search. So if I click this, it's going to automatically pull up my camera if I were on an actual device here. So it's going to allow me to scan and it will automatically pull up that materials record. I can bulk assign things to a vehicle. So if I click on this and click on a vehicle, it'll allow me to select 5 or 6 different materials, and maybe I add 5 of each to a vehicle all together there. But if we scroll through, it's going to give us information. Maybe the serialized material here, it's going to show me that I have 16 of them. It'll give me some basic information. If I click on view items, it'll show me all of the different serialized items that I have. Again, I can scan search through these instead of having to scroll or swipe here. It'll show me some basic information, the status, the action, and I can always change this. So if I see that it's damaged, I can always click that and indicate it there. I can receive new items. So this is commonly used by like a warehouse manager. If we're going to receive the new inventory straight into our system, they could go here and scan in new items there. And then they can always assign these out to a vehicle as well. It's a quick look at the warehouse there. If I click into vehicles, it's going to show me I have this GMC 1500 today. So it's pretty much the same view. It's just going to give me a feel of what my truck stock is. So again, with the filter search, it's just a free text search there. If I hit search model, it's going to go ahead and scan search there. So it'll show me all the different items that I've got here. And then same view with the warehouse, I can actually click in and see further information. I can always add items. So depending on my permissions, it will allow me to add items myself from a warehouse or from like a customer location. So if I've got something like a set-top box that's out at a certain customer's location, I can actually scan that back into my inventory. I could also see other truck stocks. So again, depending on permissions, it might allow me to see that this Ford F450 has this in stock. So maybe I call the person who has this vehicle and go pick it up from them. So again, a lot of capabilities here. It is largely driven by permissions. Most important tab here is going to be the jobs. So this is where they're pretty much going to live day in and day out, get all the information of the work that they're to be working on. We've got a search up here so they can search through any of their jobs. Again, create new jobs, so that'll allow them to create a completely new job from the field without having to call dispatch and go back and forth. I have it turned on to just show my jobs for today, but we can configure that according to what makes sense for each business. So we just schedule that at n number of days in advance. So if you want your people to see 3 days in advance, 7 days in advance, it's just a simple feature flag that we turn on. So right now it's going to give me some basic information about my job here. If I click change status, I'm going to hit in transit here. So this is going to do a couple of things. It's not only going to drop a GPS pin, but it's going to date and time stamp me. And then typically this is going to be what can deploy the different customer communications that we have. So now I've hit on site, maybe that's going to deploy the text message to the customer saying, hey, Jen's on site, and whatever that message looks like for you guys, we can configure. We'll see this alert pop up, so it's going to show me that gate code that we had stored on the customer's record. I can always come back here and view those alerts again as well. I can always click here and change the status again as I continue to work through this job, but it's going to give me basic job information up top here. If there's equipment on the job, it's going to show me that. So if I click in here, it'll show me the equipment that I'm supposed to be working on. I can click in for further details. We'll see the flex fields, so these custom fields down here. I can view the history for this specific piece of equipment, and then I can view any notes that might be here. I can add new notes as well, and then I can always add or remove any equipment as well. So if I click add equipment, it'll show me the rest of the equipment that's on site for this customer. I can add multiple pieces to this job, and then I can always remove them as well. Click back here. It's going to give me some basic customer information. So this is most commonly used for driving directions. This is going to be click to call, click to email, and then click for driving directions. It'll simply just open whatever the default maps is on the person's phone. So like for my phone, it would open up Apple Maps. Maybe on your phone, it'll open up Google Maps. We can view job history for a specific customer. So since I'm out working on this job for AgileField, it's going to show me all of the past jobs that were completed there. So it'll show me all this information here. I can actually click in to view further details as well. So it'll show me some of the basic information. It'll show me one or multiple technicians that might have worked this job. It'll show me the different line items that were completed, and if there were signatures on this job, they would be stored here as well. And then any documents. So this can be driven by a number of different things. It could be driven by the customer that we're working for, the piece of equipment that might be on the job, or the type of work that we're doing. So if every time we do a maintenance job, we need 2 or 3 different documents to populate, that can happen automatically. Or as an example, I have this Capstone C65 piece of equipment on this job. So it's showing me the manual for the Capstone C65 here. If I simply swipe in and open, it will open and open automatically on the phone. Since I'm on an emulator, it'll open a new window. Next tab here is going to be forms. So these again are going to be where we would put in any of those inspection forms or get that additional information that you might be collecting in the field today. We have custom groupings and then custom questions here. So all of this is going to be user defined. I've put in just a couple examples here, like under safety check. It can be a checkbox. It can be things like a drop down. It can be date fields, numeric values, single line text, multi-line text, whatever you guys need it to be here. Again, these are going to be available for things like the message templates from a reporting standpoint, and then also via the integrations as well. We can require any of these fields, so if maybe you need them to check the safety check off before they complete this job, a little red exclamation point will come up here, a little red asterisk, so it will require us to complete this before the job. The work tab here is going to be where we have all the different line items. So when we selected a maintenance job, it automatically generated these different line items. Again, that's completely configured depending on the type of work that we're doing. So maybe there's a certain charge for preventative maintenance, maybe there's a certain charge for an equipment rental, and then maybe there's a specific material that we always use when we do a maintenance job. Those will automatically default here. They can always be removed, and we can always add additional activities as well. So if I click to add a material, it'll tell me to select my source. So I'll select my truck stock. I'll select this piece of material, I'll add the quantity, and then that will go ahead and add to the job here. On the sign tab here, we can just click in to get signatures from the tech and the customer here. Go ahead and accept. We can enter additional notes down here. I can always click here to save. From the sign tab, it will ask if I want to go ahead and complete this job. I'm going to hit not yet, but it'll go ahead and save these. The send invoice button is here if you need to manually send an invoice or a copy of a work order out. We can add additional email addresses here. So if you've got everything configured to send out automatically when the job is completed, we may not utilize this button here. But if you happen to be out on a job and you decide you want to send over the invoice right away in real time to one or multiple addresses, we could utilize this button. In the top right here, we're going to have the photos button. So this would automatically bring up my phone's camera, or this would bring up the image gallery. So we can hit either of those, and these will go ahead and attach to the job in real time. And then notes as well. So if I had entered notes in the back office, those are going to be viewable here. I can always hit new note to log any notes with this job here as well. So if I go ahead and hit save, it's going to ask if I want to complete this job. It'll go ahead and GPS date and time stamp me and then send out any customer communication that might be set up, and it'll return me back here to continue on with my next piece of work. So that's kind of a quick overview there of going ahead, scheduling a job, looking over a customer record in the back office, and then jumping out to the mobile application. Do keep in mind that I showed you pretty much all of the features that we have from a high level here. If there are things that you wouldn't utilize, a lot of this is turn on, turn off, depending on the business need. I'm going to go ahead and pass it back over to Jeff and Jesse, and thanks again for the time.
Great job, Jen. Thanks for doing that. And for the guests in the audience, as Jen mentioned, you know, we did our best to sort of fly by that as quickly as possible. If for those of you on the line that are interested in maybe a more personal demo or discussions and discovery specific to your needs or environment, I'd encourage you to reach out to the FAY team, and we would obviously coordinate that collectively between FAY, ourselves, and you. So I think that's a wrap from our end, at least from our perspective. I think, Jesse, you were sending me some messaging about a few questions that came across. Maybe we could take this opportunity to answer those, and if we can, we will, and if not, we'll table them and then reply, you know, back through you to the client directly if we don't have an immediate response.
Yeah, a couple of questions that came in. Can service quotes be entered as well as the jobs?
Jen, you want to take that? I'm not sure I understand the question 100%, but
yeah, it depends on what you mean by service quote, but I believe the answer is yes. Qualified, yes.
And then there was a question, you know, one attendee had some concerns around their system as far as tracking purchase orders against a job and managing RMAs back to the manufacturer. Can you talk a little bit about that, or is that something more to take offline?
That's probably something to take offline, just depending on the other systems that might be in place already, because the answer will differ if there's something like Sage in place versus if it's completely through our system.
Okay, great. And so I'll coordinate that.
Yeah, if you can just dialogue directly with your customer or your prospect, and then have a member of your team, you know, parlay it back to us. We'll have the correct answer for you, certainly.
Another question. Notice you discussed that AgileField can be used by our technicians using their own phone or tablet or laptop, but we do experience some turnover on our staff. If the software is loaded on one of our staff's personal devices, and that maybe that person quits or leaves a job, how do we account for that software license?
Jen, you want to take that one, or do you want me to?
You can.
Sure. So, so it is a named user license model. So what that means is the licensing is assigned to the company. So we would just turn off that particular user and then reassign that license to another member of the team. It's relatively simple, but it is quite common.
Okay, great, thank you. And then say, for example, you have a staff member, maybe they're more on a senior level, worked for a long time within the company, and and maybe, they're not as tech savvy. They've been, looking at solutions like this in the past. If they've been hesitant, for staff members that might resist it, how does AgileField address situations where the staff may be, a little hesitant about new technology?
Sure. Jen, you want to take it, or would you like me to?
Go for it.
All right, 2 for 2. So it's a good point, and we didn't touch that in this presentation, but we do have a success team. We have a staff, a group of folks on our team that, in fact, their existence here is just to ensure the success of our customers. So we work in tandem with Faye. We have training guides based on the users themselves in the defined roles, job aids, videos, along with whatever training materials and coaching that Faye Business Systems would provide as well. So if a customer is not successful, then none of us are successful. So we look at it that way.
Okay, great. And then just one final question for companies that are looking to scale. Maybe they're smaller or a smaller division of a larger company. How do you support divisions within multiple companies?
So Jen, I don't want to hog the show. You touched on the parent-child kind of hierarchy. Do you want to maybe touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, can you actually repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just pulling up the module. 1 second.
I think he was just talking about, I think if I recall, it was just referencing, a division of a company uses our platform, and then possibly how does it work from a parent-child perspective?
Sure. That really depends on, it's kind of a twofold answer though. If they just have a bunch of different offices and maybe the parent company just needs visibility there, we would utilize the different divisions for that. So if somebody's out in a Phoenix location, they're going to log in and only see Phoenix information. If they're in, a San Francisco location, when they log in, they'll see San Francisco information. However, maybe the parent company is going to have access to all of those, and they'll be able to report on all that, see what's going on in real time across the different divisions. If the company itself has its own needs that they want to keep separate, we would treat that as like a separate customer, but we could always give them visibility to their child companies as well.
Very good. If that didn't answer the question, Jesse, just have the person once again parlay that back to us, and we'll be certain to answer it correctly.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that covered it.
So I think that's a wrap on our end.
Yeah. So thank you, Jen. Thank you, Jeff. And we'll follow up with any other questions that we couldn't get to in the presentation just over email. Appreciate you guys taking the time to present with us today to our audience. And that's it from our end. If you got any closing comments or statements, guys.
Just a big thank you. Again, thanks for coordinating, Jesse and Faye. And we appreciate everyone's time and the opportunity to present to us. And this is recorded and going to be circulated throughout your audience that either registered or not, correct, Jesse?
You got it.
Very good. Well, we'll look forward to that, and hopefully we speak with some of you that attended soon.
All right. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Have a good week,
Have
everyone.
a great day.